The House of Ruspoli are an old and noble Italian family. The origins of the family can be traced back to the Ruspoli of Florence in the 13th century, and through the family's claimed direct descent from Marius Scotus in the 8th century and the Marescottis of Bologna. In the 17th century, the Ruspolis moved to Rome, where the last descendant, Vittoria Ruspoli, Marchioness of Cerveteri, married Sforza Vicino Marescotti, Count of Vignanello, a descendant of the Farnese family on both his mother's and father's side. One of Vittoria's sons took the Ruspoli name and coat of arms to guarantee the continuity of the house. In 1708, Vittoria's grandson, Francesco Ruspoli, head of the Ruspoli regiment, fought to defend the Vatican state. In 1709 he forced the Austrians to a retreat, and Pope Clement XI named Francesco first Prince of Cerveteri. The papal title was conferred in 1721, and the Italian in 1905. They held the post of headmaster of the Sacred Apostolic Hospice, or Quartermaster General of the Sacred Palaces, which was an hereditary official of the pontifical household. He was a participating Privy Chamberlains and the sole lay member of the noble Privy Antechamber, as well as a participating Privy Chamberlains of the Sword and Cape. The post was abolished in the reforms of the Papal Curia after 1968. History. Origins. There are traces of members of the Ruspoli family from the 13th century on the tombstones in the churches of Ognissanti and of Santa Maria Novella, in Florence. Some of its members, in chronological order: Lorenzo Ruspoli, Florentine noble, lived in early 13th century. Neri Ruspoli, chief Ghibelline. In 1266 the Guelphs burned down his house in Florence. Ser Bonacorso Ruspoli, Hotari in Florence, and Guino Ruspoli, lived in 1304. Roberto Ruspoli, lived mid-14th century. Giovanni Ruspoli, born in 1363, Gonfalonier and prior in 1391, built the Gentilizia Chapel in Ognissanti Church. Roberto Ruspoli and Zanobi Ruspoli, lived in 1391. Lorenzo Ruspoli, born in 1384, Praetor of Begonia in 1432, Praetor of Piccioli in 1460, Gonfalonier of Florence. Giovanni Ruspoli, born on April 25, 1420, buried in Ognissanti. Marius I. Maddalena Butti II. Bartolomeo Paffi. Lorenzo Ruspoli, born in 1460, associated with Amerigo Vespucci. Marries Alessandra da Maguali. It is Bartolomeo, son of the above-mentioned Lorenzo, that the family moved away from the imperial Ghibellines and came closer to the Vatican state. Bartolomeo Ruspoli was born in Florence in 1496. He formed a business partnerships with the Altoviti family, who were influential wool traders and bankers. In 1529 Bartolomeo traveled to Rome, where he married Maria Ardinghelli, niece of Cardinal Niccolo Ardinghelli, an influential member of the Farnese fraction and an intimate associate of Alessandro Farnese, future Pope Paul III. The Ruspoli were thus integrated into the Roman Curia and the papal court, and Bartolomeo's children, both sons and daughters, were all married into families of the Roman nobility, Muti, Cavalieri and Floridi. In 1531 Bartolomeo Ruspoli was named petitioner of the Apostolic Letters by Pope Clement VII. In 1535 he was made prior of Florence. Gradually, and certainly by the 17th century, the Ruspoli had lost their identity as Florentine merchants and bankers, referring to themselves exclusively as Roman nobles. Middle Ages according to the Marescotti Ruspoli archive, and is often seen on various family trees and reported on the official Libro d'Oro della Nobiltà Italiana, published established by the Collegio or Heraldico. The origins of the Marescotti can be traced back to Marius Scotus, born in Galloway in southwest Scotland in the 8th century. In the year 773, King Charlemagne started a military campaign against the Lombards in Italy, because they were not respecting an agreement made with Pepin the Short to give part of the land to the state of the Church. He asked for help from King of Dalriata Eochaid. The latter asked his cousin Count William of Douglas to recruit and bring to France a brigade of 4,000 men, which he did, but soon thereafter he had to return to Scotland to govern the family clan, leaving his command to his younger brother Marius, who at the time was described as courageous, tall, strong and with a reddish beard. The army of the Franks crossed the Alps and took base in the Benedictine Abbey of Novalenza in the high valley of Dora Riparia. Marius Scotus, as he was known in Italy, discovered a small path through forests between the mountains which was absolutely unusable by the army, but perfect for the Scottish Highlanders. After walking quietly for 3 days along the path, Marius Scotus and his men attacked the Lombards by surprise from the back, while King Charlemagne attacked with the cavalry from the front. It was a major victory for the Franks which marked the decline of the Lombards in Italy. In the spring of the following year, Pope Adrian I and the king decided to meet, with a small escort, amongst whom Marius Scotus was present. Charlemagne travelled the ancient Via Cassia to St. Peter's Basilica, where he was received and blessed by the Pope. Marius Scotus was Catholic, as were the majority of Scotsmen at the time, and at the service of his king became himself a defender of the faith. He became an appreciated military advisor and distinguished himself in the Spanish campaign and in the battle against the Saxons at the confluence of the Weser with the Aller, in which of the 5,000 Saxons, only the 500 who chose to be baptized were spared their lives. Towards the end of the century, Marius Scotus retired from the army, married an Italian noblewoman called Marozia, and, for his devotion to the Pope, settled in Rome, where he was granted the honor to escort the Pope. He was therefore present when in April 799 Pope Leo III was assaulted and kidnapped near the church of San Lorenzo in Lucina. Marius Scotus was able to find the Pope in a monastery on the Aventine Hill and rescued him and returned him to his throne at the Holy See. The scene was later painted in Bologna by Giuseppe Antonio Caccioli. On Christmas Day 800, Marius Scotus was invested Count of Bagnacavallo in Romagna and was granted the privilege to ornate his family crest, which already had the rampant leopard of Scotland, with the 3 fleur-de-lis, characteristic symbol of the French kings. The family still conserves a very ancient portrait of a soldier with the following inscription in Latin: Marius de Calves Scotus, Carl Magem Dux Familiam Marescotti Fundivit and DDCCC. In the 9th century, the Marescotti people carried the title of Counts of Bagnacavallo, a large fiefdom between the Lamon and Savio rivers. Charlemagne had received vast lands in the Bologna area and had later distributed them, as was the custom in those days, to the veterans of his army. Some members of the family in chronological order: Alberto il Malvicino de Calvisoda, Calvi Count of Bagnacavallo, Alberto Count of Bagnacavallo, Hermes, Massimiliano and Oddo Marescotti were consuls of Orvieto respectively in 1035, 1091 and 1099. Carbone in 1120 built a tower in Bologna. Raniero Marescotti, elected cardinal by Pope Lucius II December 18, 1144. Marescotto, consul of Bologna e captain general of Bologna in the war against Imola in 1179. Pietro da Calvi Marescotti, podesta of Faenza in 1185, Marescotto consul of Bologna 1227, Guglielmo, podesta di Siena nel 1232. His son Corrado was chancellor of Emperor Frederick II in 1249. Alberto Marescotti, son of Ugolino, was consul of Bologna, captain general of the infantry of Bologna, then took Faenza in 1281 and regained Imola in 1290. From Renaissance to Enlightenment, the navy commander Fabrizio Ruspoli, son of Bartolomeo Ruspoli and Maria Ardinghelli, distinguished himself in the Battle of Lepanto. The Ottomans lost all but 30 of its ships and as many as 30,000 men, a decisive victory for Christianity and a strategic military one, that marked the start of the decline of the Ottomans' power in the Mediterranean. The Christians attributed the victory to the protection of the Virgin Mary, whom they had invoked by reciting the Rosary, and Pope Pius V instituted a feast in its honor as Our Lady of Victory. Orazio Ruspoli, brother of Fabrizio, became a successful banker and was then named magistrate of the colleges in 1557. After the Battle of Lepanto, he started the Banco Ruspoli in Siena and the family became very wealthy. Orazio married Felice Cavalieri and had 2 children. Lorenzo Ruspoli, their cousin, was in the wool trade and then also became a successful banker in Florence and then consul. He then married Lady Maria di Bernardo Franceschi and had 2 children, Antonio and Francesco. The latter became a published satirical poet. Vittoria Ruspoli, daughter of Orazio and Felice Cavalieri, married in 1617 Sforza Vicino Marescotti, Count of Vignanello, Lord of Parano, Roman noble and Patricio of Bologna, magistrate of Conservatory of Bologna in 1632 and Conservator di Roma in 1654. The Vittoria's brother, Bartolomeo Ruspoli, after acquiring the fiefdom of the Marquis of Cerveteri and in Rome the palace on the Araceli, donated everything to the heirs of her sister. The Vittoria's husband, Sforza Vicino, descended from the Farnese family from both his mother's and his father's side. From his father's side he inherited the fiefdom of Vignanello. His grandmother was Giulia Farnese. The entire branch of the Farnese became extinct and the descendants of the Marescottis kept the fiefdom and the Castello Ruspoli in Vignanello up to our days. Meanwhile, Clarice, born March 6, 1585, sister of Sforza Vicino Marescotti, became a nun in the convent of San Bernardino in Viterbo with the name of Sister Jacinta. She was canonized saint by Pope Pius VII in 1807. Her feast is celebrated on January 30. Galeazzo Marescotti, son of Sforza Vicino and Vittoria, was elected cardinal by Pope Clement X. Cerveteri line. Francesco Maria Marescotti Ruspoli, first-born son of Alessandro, was born March 2, 1672. In 1695 he married Lady Isabella Cesi, daughter of Giuseppe Angelo, 5th Duke of Equisparta and Giacinta Conti of the Dukes of Poli and Guadagnolo. After various legal battles he inherited from the Marescottis, Capasuccis and Ruspolis. On September 4, 1705, by notarial act Floridi, he could finally add to his titles that of Marquis of Cerveteri. Francesco Maria appreciated and helped the development of Academy of Arcadia, of which he was a member under the pseudonym Alinto. He was the first patron to welcome them in one of his villas on Via Merlana. The first volume of the Rime degli Arcadi was dedicated to Francesco Maria. In 1725 the Arcadia took permanent residence in the Gianicolo Villa of Bosco Parisio. In 1707 George Friedrich Handel arrived in Rome, where for 2 years he was a guest of Francesco Maria Ruspoli, who named him Kapellmeister. During this period he composed Sovragina, which he performed in the Ruspoli castle in Vignanello, and Diana Cacciatrice, which he performed in Palazzo Ruspoli in Cerveteri. In Rome at the Ruspolis and the Ottobonus he performed the oratorios La Resurrezione and the Triunfo del Tempo e del Disengano, both dedicated to Francesco Maria Marescotti Ruspoli. Between 1709 and 1716 he was succeeded as Kapellmeister by Antonio Caldara. Cardinal Galeazzo Marescotti watched over his beloved nephew and was pleased with the brilliant life, but more so with the great culture, munificence, and devotion to God of Francesco Maria. The cardinal had a precise plan to persuade the Pope to elevate the title of the fiefdom of Cerveteri from marquis to prince. Other Roman noble families such as the Aldobrandini, Boncompagni, Borghese, and Erberodescalchi were made princes by the respective popes. The Ruspolis did not have a pope, and it was necessary to make a munificent gesture and to acquire particular merits with the Holy See. In 1707 the cardinal persuaded his nephew to arm a brig to donate to the Holy See. The modern hull with wide sails was delivered in Civitavecchia. Handel had composed for the occasion a choral of white voices on a text greeting the Pope King, but that was not enough to elevate Cerveteri to a principality. In 1708 Francesco Maria created the Ruspoli regiment at his own expense. Formed by nearly 1,000 men, the regiment enjoyed some minor victories, until 1709 when in Ferrara, thanks to a superior armament, they were able to push the Austrians back to the north of the Po River. A great victory for which on February 3, 1709, full of gratitude, Pope Clement XI elevated Cerveteri to a principality. In 1710 Prince Francesco Maria Marescotti Ruspoli acquired the fiefdom of Riano, where he enriched the town with privileges and public works. In 1713 he acquired the fiefdom of San Felice Circeo, which then passed in 1718 to his daughter's husband, Filippo Orsini. Still in 1713 Francesco Maria bought the Palazzo Ruspoli in Rome from the Catani, who had charged Martino Longhi the Younger to build the sumptuous loggia on the courtyard and the famous staircase, one of the four wonders of Rome. In 1721 Pope Benedict XIII conferred to Francesco Maria the title of Principe Romano for himself and his descendants, ad infinitum, so the family could conserve the prestige of its ancestors. Pope Benedict XIII then came to Vignanello in 1725 to solemnly consecrate the new parish church built by the will of Francesco Maria. The princely family is represented by Prince Francesco Maria Ruspoli, 10th Prince of Cerveteri. His father was Prince Alessandro Ruspoli, 9th Prince of Cerveteri. Notable members: Cardinal Bartolomeo Ruspoli, Carlotta de Godoy, 2nd Duchess of Suica, Alessandro Ruspoli, 9th Prince of Cerveteri, Ta Ruspoli, Bart Ruspoli, Camillo Ruspoli, a 4th Duke of Alcudia and Suica, Carlos Ruspoli, 5th Duke of Alcudia and Suica, Luis Ruspoli, 7th Marquis of Bodella del Monte, Luis Ruspoli, Baron of Mascalbo, Enrique Jaime Ruspoli, 19th Count of Banez, Costantino Mario Ruspoli, 4th Prince of Poggio Suarsa, Carlo Emanuele Ruspoli, 3rd Duke of Morignano, Maria de Gracia Giacinta Ruspoli, 26th Marquis of the Villa de Gradinello.